You are watching DHTV from California State University, Dominguez Hills.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to give everybody a few seconds to get logged in before we kick off today's program. And there's always those 15 seconds of awkwardness while we do that to let you all log in. All right, perfect. Good morning. And on behalf of the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, welcome. And thank you for joining us for this Future Forum, The Future of Entertainment, Reimagining an Industry, a special showcase presented by California State Dominguez Hills. My name is Shane Cullen and I oversee events for the LAEDC and will be both your Zoom tech and moderator for today. We have a star-studded program of presenters and panelists who will be sharing their insights with you today. But before we start, let me explain to you how you can talk with us or communicate with us during this webinar. If you're having technical difficulties, please utilize the chat feature to send those concerns directly to us. This can be found in the controls at the bottom of your screen. We will be answering questions that were pre-submitted, as well as your live questions during this program. To submit a question, please use the Q&A feature also in the controls at the bottom of your screen. Again, if you have a question to submit, please use the Q&A feature and not the chat feature. We will send you all the relevant links later this week, including a link to the webinar recording. And don't forget, join the conversation with us online by using the hashtag LAEDC Future Forum. I'd now like to introduce the CEO of the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, Bill Allen.
Thank you, Shane, and good morning, everyone. On behalf of all my colleagues at the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to our latest Future Forum, this one on the future of our entertainment and digital media industry here in Los Angeles County. For any of you new to this series of forward-looking explorations of our leading industry clusters in LA County, let me just share that the LADC is a private, nonprofit, public benefit corporation whose mission is to work with folks like all of you on this Zoom today to reinvent our regional economy to advance opportunity and prosperity for all of our area residents. In furtherance of that objective, we pursue reimagination, reinvention, and inclusive growth in our leading economic industry sectors, including, of course, our world-leading entertainment and digital media industry, which has seen its rapid digitization in recent years only accelerate during the course of this global pandemic. Our ability to advance these goals and assemble and deliver to you such impressive and insightful speakers as we have today is made possible by our dedicated partners in this work, most particularly today our presenting sponsor of this entire Future Forum series, California State University, Dominguez Hills. I'd like to thank the university's leadership for their vision, foresight, and commitment to enabling more promising career pathways for their graduates by bringing these forum conversations to you in the public, and for serving as our Future Forum series sponsor since inception more than 3 years ago. California State University, Dominguez Hills is a diverse, welcoming community of learners and educators, collaborating to change lives and communities for the better. With strong academic programs, dedicated faculty mentors, truly supportive staff, and many campus amenities, CSU Dominguez Hills is committed to connecting its students with a high quality and transformative education while providing our communities with a vital resource for diverse talent, knowledge, skills, and leadership needed to thrive in our society and our economy today and tomorrow. So it's my pleasure to introduce my good friend and a distinguished civic and higher education leader, the 11th president of California State University, Dominguez Hills, Dr. Thomas Parham. Dr. Parham, the platform is yours.
Thank you again, Bill, and good morning to everybody. And remind folk that I come to you from Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, your university, serving the Southern California region. And I'm once again honored to serve as presenting sponsor for the LAEDC Future Forum, which is being held now for its third time in virtual format. And I want to begin by thanking the LAEDC for hosting these eye-opening forums and for bringing together such an impactful group of panelists today. You are in for a treat. You know, somewhere I read a quote from actor Will Smith, who reminds us that greatness is not the wonderful, esoteric, elusive, godlike feature that only a special few among us will ever taste. It is something that truly exists in all of us. Indeed, if the entertainment industry's future is to reach its aspirational thresholds, it will have to be more inclusive of all of us. And so with that frame, I invite each of you to remember today that future forums such as these are not intended merely to entertain you with facts and data. Rather, they are designed to challenge your thinking, to appeal to your emotional sensibilities, to instigate a new realm of behavior that move beyond convention to new and higher levels of creativity and innovation. And the focus on today's forum is the future of entertainment, reimagining an industry, and a topic of great interest and economic impact in Southern California, where so many of today's films, TV shows, and video games are produced. And much of the entertainment industry has long been centered in Southern California, but the changes the industry is going through are wide-ranging and seismic in impact, and are sure to affect everyone with a stake in its success. And so the leaders who are joining us today are involved in a variety of aspects of the entertainment industry, from creating new paradigms in streaming television to bridging the gap between video games and films. They're uniquely positioned, ladies and gentlemen, to speak to how our entertainment choices will transform, morph, and develop over the next several years. So today, we'll hear from industry leaders, speak on a variety of intriguing topics, including how virtual and extended reality are being embraced by creative visionaries as they look to new ways to engage audiences. And we'll hear about the enormous economic impact that the entertainment industry has on Southern California, and how gaming has become its largest revenue generator. Isn't that amazing? Gaming. We'll discover the ways in which other forms of entertainment, such as music and film, have begun to merge with video games, and what the future of this exciting synergy might mean. And so I'm also looking forward to hearing our panelists speak on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, which effectively stopped or paused much of the film and television production while causing disruptions in every aspect of the industry. And what adaptations have they had to make, and how have they intended to recover from the setbacks? And finally, our panelists will speak to a topic that is close to my heart and to the mission of the California State University, Dominguez Hills, which is social justice and representation. They'll address the convergence of sports and the movement for social justice, and the ways in which industry actions can further the goal of true equality. And I'm also keen to hear their thoughts on representation and how the industry can ensure that all aspects of society are heard and respected. And those exciting developments in the entertainment industry promise to bring even more capital, jobs, and innovation to Los Angeles over the next few decades. And the California State University plans to work with each and every one of you along the way. And so, as our university has long teamed with area leaders working to mold a curriculum and match to what local industries need, in the realm of entertainment, our university boasts a robust and expanding digital media arts program that gives students hands-on experience in many virtual or vital aspects of television and audio production and delivery. We also are home to accomplished dance, theater arts, music programs, while also burgeoning esports program promises to help students develop. So at Cal State University, Dominguez Hills, our ongoing partnership with industry leaders and the LAEDC, right, promises to be one of the most important relationships we have going forward. So I want to thank you once again to the LAEDC for hosting this event. And I'll now turn the virtual microphone back over to my friend Bill Allen, their CEO, who will introduce our first featured presenter of the morning. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for us to be with you.
Thank you, Dr. Parham, for your leadership at the university, for your leadership on our board at the LAEDC, for your leadership in the broader community that we all serve and love, and for so eloquently, as always, setting the stage for today's conversation. As you said, it's now my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker. Mike Drath is the Chief Operations Officer and Chief Financial Officer for Pluto TV, based right here in LA. an exciting and innovative entertainment streaming service with an advertiser-supported rather than subscription-based business model. That means it's free, folks. Mike joined Pluto TV in 2017, having previously served as COO and CFO for social media marketing company The Audience, which was acquired in 2015. Before that, he held various leadership positions at Disney, including heading the strategy and business development team for Disney Consumer Products, leading finance for Disney Mobile Gaming after the company acquired mobile games publisher Tapulous. Mike has also previously served in corporate strategy and finance client advisory roles at Bain & Company, Deloitte, Nielsen's Cambridge Group, and as an independent consultant. With an MBA with high distinction from the University of Michigan and undergraduate degrees in business and accounting, Mike is well prepared for this industry leadership role he serves in today, and we are thrilled to welcome him to kick off our conversation at today's Future Forum. Mike, the platform is yours, and thank you for being with us today.
What is this place?
Shall we take a look?
It's about to get real interesting. I like that.
I'm so excited!
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to speak a little about Pluto today, and thank you all for joining. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Pluto TV story, starting at the beginning and move pretty rapidly through where we are today. So to begin with, the inception of Pluto began in 2014. The company began with a mission to entertain the planet by resolving what we call the paradox of choice. The idea was based on three contrarian principles. One, we were a linear product in the age of video on demand. Two, we were ad supported in an age when most offerings were ad free. And three, we were free in the age of paid subscriptions. The business began by aggregating short form content from YouTube into channels and evolved into licensing long form premium content. Over time, we added over 100 new channels and content partners. We cut game-changing distribution deals. We improved the product experience for users and began monetizing our ad inventory as a proof point that advertiser demand existed to get in front of our growing audience. Fast forwarding to early 2019, this was a milestone in the company's history when we were acquired by Viacom for $340 million. A very exciting day for everyone involved. This was a wonderful opportunity to marry a fast-growing, innovative startup like Pluto that was proving the value of free ad-supported streaming TV with one of the largest media companies in the world, owner of a massive library of iconic content, scaled distribution deals, ad sales infrastructure, and obviously the financial and marketing heft to help take Pluto to the next level. For Viacom, Pluto offered the opportunity to develop a scaled direct-to-consumer offering that substantially enhanced their advertising solutions, that positioned Pluto as a value offering to their distribution partners, and that unlocked their deep library value while also creating a global opportunity for us that we're fully taking advantage of. I'll get into that in a little bit. Following our acquisition by Viacom, we quickly launched over 50 channels, including co-branded flagship channels like MTV Pluto TV, BET Pluto TV, Comedy Central Pluto TV, and others. We even revived Spike as Spike Pluto TV. We also launched a large number of single series and pop-up channels around iconic series and events. And what this all means is that you can all binge watch some of your very favorite content on Pluto today. All of these benefits accelerated further following the merger of Viacom and CBS in late 2019, adding yet another enormous library of classic, iconic content and accelerating the healthy cross-promotional partnership between Pluto TV's free TV service and the combined Viacom-CBS subscription-based services like CBS All Access, Showtime, and others. As a result of the merger, we announced that we were bringing an additional 40 new series to the service, showing the value that we bring to Viacom-CBS's deep and evergreen library. These are series we all grew up with, including CSI, Beverly Hills 90210, Melrose Place, Star Trek, Amazing Race, Survivor, the list goes on and on. Really awesome, awesome content. A little bit about our marketplace positioning. We see ourselves being a free product as complementary and not as competitive in the streaming marketplace. The average household, which probably you all experience as well, has around 4 to 5 paid subscription services right now. So that's a lot, and it adds up to quite a bit of money. Pluto TV completes that package with a free service. In other words, the way I like to put it is Pluto TV is an and, not an or. You can have it all. And while we have a premium slate of Viacom CBS content available on Pluto TV, it only accounts for about 20% of our full channel lineup, which also houses hundreds of channels from over 200 third-party major media and content partners. So that means we're acting as a market-neutral platform that enables us to be the largest free TV service in the world. So we maintain a unique place in the market, providing a wide array of content in all interest areas on virtually all key mobile, web, and connected TV devices, and available to virtually all audiences. Today, we continue to see acceleration across all areas of our business. We're growing monthly active users, we're growing user engagement, and we're hockey sticking on total viewing hours, which is thrilling for us to see. We're also building bigger and better content acquisition partnerships and distribution partnerships, and landing broader agency and advertiser deals. Additionally, we've added or expanded our presence on a dozen new distribution partners since our acquisition, and we're now at a total of over 35 distribution partners, a massive count. Our partners include entities such as Comcast, Cox, AT&T, Verizon, Google, LG, Facebook, you name it. We've done some incredible deals over the last 12 to 18 months that have brought us into so many more of your homes. We've also doubled the volume of the content available to viewers to now over 100,000 hours of premium content being streamed across our platform. Additionally, we've continually upgraded our product to improve the user experience, and we've refreshed and recategorized our program guide, which you saw a little bit of in that intro video, to better organize our ever-growing content that's being added to the library. Obviously, we couldn't talk about 2020 without mentioning the impact of the pandemic. And obviously, while it's not something that we ever would have hoped for, the byproduct of the pandemic and stay-at-home orders proved to be a catalyst for audiences searching for what to watch and new ways to do so. This resulted in greater discovery and adoption of all streaming services, including Pluto TV. And with the economic impact of the pandemic obviously affecting a lot of people's wallets, our free-to-stream proposition was an increasingly attractive proposition to all types of viewing audiences. As a result, we saw double-digit increases in daily active users as well as total viewing hours at the onset of the pandemic. More specifically, we saw a massive lift in viewership across our news category. Obviously at the time, and still to some extent now, everybody wants to know what's going on with COVID. We also saw spikes in our binge watch channels, our entertainment channels, movie channels, kids programming, and our VOD section. So switching gear just a little bit, looking at the future of Pluto TV. In a nutshell, I would say all of our cylinders are firing very, very well. We're continuously improving our user experience to allow for seamless viewing and increased personalization. So you're all going to see an even better Pluto TV over the coming weeks, months, and years. We're also growing the types of programming and content partners that we work with. And an exciting example that we just announced days ago was our deal to stream all 5 seasons of the Netflix original series Narcos beginning on October 20th. This is a very exciting development. So please, all of you, tune in. It's a great series. We're also building on our relationships with our sibling Viacom CBS brands now that we're all under one company to find innovative ways to collaborate and cross-promote the entire portfolio of our streaming products. And finally, we're aggressively growing our international footprint, and we're continuing with this global expansion into 21 and beyond. couple of sound bites on that. During the middle of COVID, we entered 17 markets in Latin America, which was a huge effort on our part and which is already bringing lots of dividends to both the viewers in Latin America and Pluto. We also recently announced the expansion into Spain this month. We're entering Brazil next month, and early next year we'll be entering France and later on Italy as well. So to bring this to a conclusion in a nutshell, I could say that we're very, very thrilled with the progress that we've experienced at Pluto TV. We're very excited about the future, and we remain committed to and excited by the opportunity to become the largest free streaming TV service in the world. So for all of you, if you haven't already done so, please check us out. We're probably in your living room already. Thank you for the opportunity.
Mike, that's great. Thank you for sharing with us ever so briefly the fascinating evolution of Pluto TV. It's so exciting to have you based here in LA and addressing the incredible demand that exists globally for entertainment, providing a free advertiser platform, and sharing with us some of the nuances of how you're doing that. I hope you'll be part of our panel discussion that my colleague Shane will lead. Before we get to that, let me invite all of our audience today to join in the conversation through social media using the hashtag LADC Future Forum. There's an opportunity for you to help bring more of our regional public into this conversation, because we're all about helping people better understand the evolution and disruption that's going on in this absolutely essential industry here in our region. We have assembled an extraordinary group of speakers for you with a lot of different perspectives, backgrounds, and insights to share on this topic. And to introduce each of them to you, I'm going to turn the platform over to my colleague Shane Cullen, who you met at the beginning of the event, who oversees all of our events and who put this wonderful panel together with our partners at CSU Dominguez Hills. Shane, would you do the honors of introducing our panelists and moderating our conversation?
Thank you so much, Bill. As Bill was saying, we have an amazing list of panelists who are joining our discussion today. And so to quickly run through, so we don't delay any further. On today's panel, we are going to be joined, of course, rejoined by Mike Drath, Chief Operations Officer and Chief Financial Officer with Pluto TV. We'll also be joined by Andrea Berry, SVP and General Manager of Broadcast, Film, and Television for PRG. Keith Aram, President and CEO of PCB Productions, as well as an alum of Cal State University, Dominguez Hills. Guillaume Aretos, the Department Chair of Entertainment Design for Art Center College of Design, and Ian Edelston, Partner and Global Media and Entertainment Assurance Leader with Ernst & Young. So I'm going to allow each of our panelists to briefly introduce themselves in about 3 to 4 minutes. And so to kick us off, Andrea, I'm going to pass it on over to you, and just please make sure you unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Shane. Thank you so much. Thanks to the LAEDC and Cal State Dominguez Hills for giving us the opportunity to speak today. As he mentioned, I'm the Senior VP and General Manager of the Broadcast, Film, and Television Group here at the Production Resource Group, which is PRG. And we're a technology solution provider with a very diverse portfolio of clients all over the world. We thrive in the entertainment space for scripted, non-scripted, and television, as well as live entertainment, news, sports, and programming. And our music group especially provides solutions for large global concert tours. We thrive on Broadway for theatrical productions. We do a lot of corporate events and hotels, service the hotels and staging groups around the world. And we have a historic scenic design shop, and our innovative engineering team has manufactured lots of proprietary gear that we use for our clients. And then COVID happened, right? We had, like everyone else, had to pivot in our business. But as our mantra states, you can see that at prg.com, we never stopped. We leveraged our innovation and manufacturing capabilities to help fight the pandemic. And Shane, can you play that quick video for about Senator Gillibrand in New York, please?
physical businesses might have slowed down, but the team here knew that there was still a lot of work to be done. As Jerry said, they took the expertise of their engineers, designers, fabricators, and technicians typically used to build world-class scenery and effects for Broadway shows and arena tours, and you put all that expertise and know-how to work to trying to address the COVID challenge. The fact that you were quickly able to rework your production and assembly line to manufacture hundreds of thousands of face shields for health workers on the front lines of the COVID crisis in New York City, and be able to manufacture these scanners, it's going to make a difference in people's ability to reopen and be able to reopen safely. Now, as international theater and musical productions come back online, you are now balancing your regular work with the production of thermal temperature scanning kiosks, which I really like as a mom, the one you want to put into a crayon, because it definitely will make it less scary for kids. PRG's willingness to set up in time of crisis is truly admirable and very inspiring. Your adaptability, commitment to innovation, dedication to the local community, and ability to deliver results is why New York is one of the best places in the world to do manufacturing. And that's why I've been fighting to bring more jobs back from overseas to New York.
Thank you, Shane. With that said, though, even though those devices were built in New York, where our manufacturing teams are, we deploy them all over the country. A lot of studios have taken advantage of them here in LA. And you know, when people started coming back to production, we saw that the request for streaming, because we couldn't be in person, increased tremendously. And we saw that in all genres of our business, the entertainment business especially. And the music industry, as you know, took a hit. And the artists needed ways to perform for their fans virtually. And so we started off with built an XR stage in Los Angeles here. And we applied the same principles in our willingness to deal with COVID and to pivot and get to ourselves better by doing this first project. And this one was for American Idol with Katy Perry. And you can roll that, Shane.
A small town, 1 in 7 billion. Why can't it be me? They told me I was out there, tried to knock me down. Took those sticks and stones, showed them I could build a house. They tell me that I'm crazy, but I'll never let them change me. So they cover me in daisies, daisies, daisies. They said I'm going nowhere, try to cut me out. Took those sticks and stones, showed them I could build a house.
As you can see, and you guys can look that up as well to see it, you can shut down the videos now, Shane. We built the most comprehensive XR stage ever seen on television that aired in May on American Idol. And since then, we've improved on the technology tremendously. We've used it for music acts, gaming, commercials, television, everything. And to the point where we just built a second stage. So we're doing great, and we're allowing ourselves to be open to all kinds of creativity to hit that mark so that we can continue employing people and can keep people engaged in the entertainment industry. So with that said, I just want to mention again, we never stopped. There was a lull for a minute, but we never stopped. Thank you.
And now I'm going to pass it on over to Keith Aram, the president and CEO of PCB Productions. Keith, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well as your company.
Hey guys, I'm Keith Therum. I'm the CEO of PCB Productions. I'm honored to be here. Thank you guys for having me. My company is a digital content creation company. We're based here in Los Angeles. We're primarily focused on video games, but we work in motion pictures, graphic novels, television. And maybe to start things off, Shane, if you maybe want to show them a little video of some of the work that we've done in the past that might give everyone a good idea of what we do. So we work in a pretty fun industry. I'm a graduate of Cal State Dominguez Hills. I graduated back in '91. I have a pretty creative and technical background. I'm a writer and a director, as well as an engineer. Since graduating, I've developed and produced and directed on over 650 games. Working primarily in the game industry, but I've directed 11 of the Call of Duty games, Spider-Man, Deadpool, Transformers, all the Tony Hawk games. So if you don't know the work that we do, most of your kids might. But we have 5 studios here in Los Angeles. We're expanding into 3 more right now. I actually came out of the music and audio engineering program at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and I actually almost didn't graduate because I came out here to go to school because it was one of the only schools in the country that had an accredited bachelor's degree in audio engineering with the intent of becoming a rock star, getting a record deal. And my parents said, well, find a school that has a good business program, something you can fall back on. And I got my first record deal as a freshman, and I almost dropped out of school. My parents wouldn't let me. So I stayed in school, graduated in '91, and my senior year, I signed with Capitol Records, and that kind of got my career started. But the whole time we were on tour, playing from city to city, we were playing video games in the back of the tour bus. And so a friend of mine was at this company called Sony, and they were working on this new game system called the PlayStation. And so I started getting involved in writing music because I had a music background. First games started to work on, won Games of the Year, and started to work in the industry. So at 21 years old, started working and pretty much haven't stopped since. So my company, the real focus over the past 25 years has been incorporating virtual production and the idea of creating new technologies and new pipelines for entertainment, primarily in video games, because it's one of the more progressive industries that relies on virtual production to do this, because we Frankenstein performances. So we work with actors and designers and artists and programmers and other things to create these large entertainment franchises. And our industry this year is over 300 billion and growing. So since COVID, it's actually been a boon to our industry. My company alone has had the highest number of productions we're working on for clients. We have 2 new original productions going on right now. I have my first television show that just got funded, an original game that's being funded, plus we're doing 30 to 40 other client games. So we're seeing a huge uptick in the audiences who are now home sheltered, who are appreciating the work that we do. And we all work remotely anyway, so this is sort of the environment that we're at. We created location rigs for our actors and our celebrities to work at home as well. So our studios that you see here interface directly with the actors so they can work comfortably and safely at home. And we are now also teaching technical acting for actors and celebrities so they can learn to work within our game industry, both on the business side and on the performance side. And that's really revolutionized our business because it allows us to work directly with talent, share new technology platforms that we use in virtual production. We're educating new actors coming into the business, as well as seasoned actors that are trying to learn how to work in video games, which is a very technical industry for when it comes to performance. And now we teach classes as well. So my wife and I, who own the company, teach privately, as well as for a lot of universities. We're teaching at USC and Cal Arts and Tri-City. Hopefully Cal State Dominguez Hills would like to have us to do some stuff with their programs as well. And it's nice to give back to the community because we're actively working in it. And we're finding that the production skills that we use in production from day to day are very useful for sort of helping us get past this, this crisis that the world is in right now. So that's our company.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Keith. Guillaume, if you'd like to introduce yourself as well as some of the work that you do with Art Center and as well as outside of Art Center in the industry.
Yes, well, first, thank you for having us and me to talk today. So I'm French, maybe the accent can tell you that. I came to the US in '96, so I'm French and American actually now. Because I was, I decided to come here for 2 years and it's been 26 now. So I was hired by DreamWorks to work on Ants in '96 as a concept artist. I published a series of books in France at that time, and one of them ended up on Jeffrey Katzenberg's desk, and they asked me to come and to help design the movie. So I've been, after that, a production designer. I designed 3 of the 4 Shrek films, Puss in Boots, and a bunch of other films I worked on at DreamWorks for 20 years. I left the company 5 years ago. And at that time, I had hired a lot of concept artists coming out of Art Center to work on production at DreamWorks. And I was offered the opportunity to become chair of the entertainment design department, which was in fact an honor because I know how strong that program was, because I hired a lot of students from the school. So since then, at Art Center, we expanded. It was only concept art for a while. We now have a game program that started about 3 years ago, and an animation program which started 5 years ago. So it's an extraordinary challenge. We have now, you know, everything is remote. So that was an interesting pivot. We also are trying new things, VR classes, to try to get the students more engaged in that virtual world. And we keep an eye on new technologies at all times. I'm still designing films also. Right now I'm working with Illumination, and in a nutshell, that's that. I'm not going to take too much time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Guillaume. And last but certainly not least, Ian, if you'd like to introduce yourself, kind of your background and the work that you do, how it relates to reimagining an industry and entertainment today, and then we'll probably pose the first question to you when you're finished.
Okay, yes, I'm obviously delighted to be here, and thank you, LA EDC and Cal State Dominguez Hills for inviting us and hosting this panel. So you might ask the question, why is an accountant on this panel after you've heard all of these wonderfully creative things? You've seen the sizzle reels. Unfortunately, I don't think we have time to show my sizzle reel. It's a really long one and it's super exciting. But what we do as an organization, I'm a partner at Ernst & Young. So we're a global a professional services organization covering everything from consulting, transactions and strategy, tax and audit. And my background is one that, like Guillaume, I actually grew up not in the US, I'm from England originally. And remarkably, again, like Guillaume, thought I'd be here for 2 years, starting in the mid-90s. And I always tell people, you know, almost 30 years later, here I am with a wife, 2 kids, a dog and 2 goldfish. But effectively, we work with really both the existing M&E industry, so everything across the board, from the smallest startup to the largest companies. And then the other thing that I've personally been involved with pretty significantly over the last 2 to 3 years is talking to a lot of companies and working with companies that weren't traditionally in the industry, but have effectively become part of the industry as they have launched their own direct consumer services and also being a buyer of content. So one of the things that we've seen kind of, you know, leading up to the pandemic was just this tremendous increase in demand for content by both traditional and non-traditional players, which obviously drove a lot of opportunity for creative and talent and other services, you know, changed the dynamics of how that talent was working within the traditional M&E industry. And then subsequent to the onset of the pandemic, really had a lot of discussions with companies in terms of how they are reacting, what they're seeing in terms of changing workforce, in terms of how they are able to continue to produce, what are the challenges that they're facing, how are they going to do things differently. And then on the flip side of that, you know, for example, in Los Angeles, we have over 2,000 people who, again, from March 15th have been completely remote working. 50,000 across the Americas. So we're also seeing at it from a pretty large organizational perspective in terms of how COVID is really changing work and how people interact, within this environment.
Thank you, Ian. And we're actually going to stay on you as I switch us to gallery view so everybody can see all of your lovely faces. So you kind of started talking about both pre-pandemic as well as some changes that you all have started to see through the pandemic. But what were the conversations happening and what was kind of that immediate impact in the market when everything really just started to turn, probably the March, April through timeframe?
Yeah, I think the immediate conversations, just as an aside, we do get together a group of CFOs and other C-suite executives periodically. And we've had a couple of similar sessions like we're doing now with those people. And I think clearly the biggest a kind of discussion point on day one was really focused around the people and their workforce and how they were enabling people to continue to work, to continue to be productive and to support them. I think from a business perspective, it was really, a question of how long was this going to last, and as this has continued, what are the knock-on effects? And I think one of the areas that it really has allowed companies and acted as a catalyst is to really experiment through necessity with that relationship that historically was not necessarily a direct consumer relationship, but went through a very predefined distribution channel or series of distribution windows, really allowed them to experiment with that direct relationship. And that also corresponded to, Mike obviously knows much more about this than I do, but as really, the explosion of OTT services and those direct consumer relationships.
Absolutely. And since you brought Mike's name into it, I'll try and treat it like a debate, but manage it better. Mike, if you can speak a little bit to that immediate impact that you all saw, whether it was an uptick in subscribers or a different change as things started to happen back in the spring.
Well, as I mentioned, obviously the entire thing was unfortunate, so it feels a little odd to say that it helped us, but in fact it did. It helped from a business perspective. People were locked at home, and so fundamentally viewing habits were changing. People were accelerating what was already going to happen. We didn't make anything happen that wasn't going to happen anyway. COVID just really supercharged some of the dynamics of cutting the cord and people discovering streaming services. From an operational perspective, I would say that if I can include that in my response, we honestly didn't skip a beat. The company was pre-prepared unknowingly for remote work. So we're all in the cloud. Everybody is able to work from home. Everything is very mobile and technologically sophisticated and nimble. But we did have a very tight office culture. Everything was highly collaborative. Our team isn't that big. And so there were a lot of benefits in being in the same tiny little space and whiteboarding and collaborating. And I couldn't even myself envision a different sort of Pluto. Even though we had some distributed offices around the world, the LA team was in one place. But we did what we needed to do. And I think the team responded with aplomb. It was kind of amazing how everybody just immediately flipped into, okay, well, I'll turn on my laptop. I'll go and do everything that I used to do in person via Zoom. And we try to be as supportive as we could for our employees as well, with respect to how we wanted to primarily take care of their health, psychologically, physiologically, and also providing them with financial benefits to enable them to get through this difficult situation, but also to take their minds off of some of the hardships that we're all facing financially or with families or with illness. And we've done a lot of fun stuff with our people, but I would say from an operational perspective, the company has benefited but not in a way that it would not otherwise have happened. And so what we're seeing is a sustained hockey stick on all our fundamentals in the business that isn't going to dampen at any point, even if COVID, hopefully soon, there's, you know, a solution to this massive problem. So we feel very optimistic about the future.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mike. And Andrea, I know you spoke a little bit about the transitions that PRG went through, especially with the Senator Gillibrand video. But for you all specifically, what was that moment like, and what kind of encouraged the company to start making that pivot, realizing that perhaps your normal operations may have to change, at least in the immediate future?
I think that when we saw a lot of productions, especially here in Los Angeles, you know, content is king, and we all know that no matter what happens, we have to have content. So people did not cancel their requests of what we had lined up for the spring. They merely pushed everything back. And so we had to change and say, okay, what can we do as good citizens, really, to help this pandemic? And so that's how the mask making and the thermal scanners happened. But we also didn't know, as Mike said, how long this would last. And so there was a lot of hopeful stuff. I mean, I come from sports broadcasting. I worked for Fox Sports for, you know, almost 20 years. And I always said in my career that I would never have a situation where there wouldn't be a show. You know, who would think that a sports event or entertainment event would be canceled? And so we had to pivot. And when we saw the increase of streaming to whatever platform we had to adhere to came about, we really transformed what we were doing. We were already doing streaming before, but this just kicked it up another notch as to how can we service our customer under the guise of streaming. And whether it was just for a corporate event or whether it was for that music artist who wanted to drop a new song, we were there and waiting for them. And so we had the opportunity to stream to, you know, platforms such as YouTube and others, so that we could get that going. It was a change for our engineers too. There was a lot of testing involved. I think in this, we hate to say that we did well during COVID, but it brought us together as a company, and we were able to collaborate all over the globe on how we do things. And I think that coming out of this, the whole concept of streaming and doing things differently, in some cases, the production people appreciate it because some of our technologies have allowed them to actually save money. So we're going to continue. I think this is one of the best things that happened to us as far as the business of being able to respond accordingly. If we didn't have the talent that we had, we wouldn't have been able to respond at all.
Absolutely. And I'm going to switch directions a little bit here and kind of turn our focus to the crossover of entertainment between sectors. And gaming has become one of the largest revenue generators, not the largest revenue generator in the entertainment world. With that, we started to see these crossovers, especially over this summer, but even before that, where you were having musical artists hosting concerts within gaming platforms. You're having gaming platforms start telling that story and becoming its own movie or own feature. So I want to pose this question specifically, Keith. I'd like to start with you. How has this impacted your particular sector and the work that you do, and knowing the work that you do? Excited for your answer. And then what further crossovers of entertainment sectors do you foresee in the future?
It's amazing what's happened to our industry because we all work virtually and remotely anyway. So on the production side of things, it really brought us together and sort of forced our technology to be utilized in the way that it was designed for. Entertainment is a very collaborative environment, especially video games. Video games is a hive mind of hundreds of people working together on a project. It's not just the singular vision of a director who's ordering people on what to do of their vision. It's really this collective vision that comes together from amazing creative people. And we're used to working in our own offices and our own sort of different specialties. And we've had the technology to come together anyway remotely. And so it really pushed the boundaries of that and expanded that. So production actually went up because we're now collaborating with people all over the world. I'm on camera more than I've ever been because I'm in Zoom meetings and Skype meetings and all sorts of Google meetings every day now. So it really expands our social circles to a point where our industry is exploding with creativity. On the flip side of distribution, you're seeing people who are home sheltered, people who are looking for entertainment, looking to escape sort of everything that's been going on, both politically and what's happening with COVID. And so people are, especially the younger audiences who don't have a lot of control over their environment, they do have that agency, that ability to control their world virtually. So you're finding kids who don't understand what's going on in the world now suddenly have the control to be able to go out and do things. And that's expanded our footprint and allowed us to expand out new distribution systems, new monetization systems. It's opening up a tremendous amount of work for talent and people coming into the industry, and also for consumers to now have a much bigger marketplace. So the game industry had already outdone film and music and television combined before COVID was happening. And even though my focus is moving into motion pictures and streaming, and you were seeing this divergence between, as Mike was talking about, this divergence of what's happening with streaming versus traditional linear mediums of people congregating in movie theaters, but that's following the same tangent of what's happening in video games. And so for us, it was actually forcing what was already going to happen into a much stronger format. And it's just, if anything, we see this, despite how horrible the pandemic has been to our society worldwide, it's actually been sort of this rebirth of technology and opportunity for people to come out forward. So it's sad to say that, considering how dark everything is, but we really see this as a really good opportunity for people to grow from this.
Absolutely. And Guillaume, within all of this, especially with your position in entertainment design, how has this increase when it comes to gaming, but also across the industry with animation and other things, how has this kind of changed how you start to develop out curriculums and really work with the students?
Yeah, well, it's changing continuously. I mean, one of the great thing about the curriculum is if you keep it, breathing and living and change it, because you have to always stay alert. I'm really happy from what Keith was saying. It means good things for our students. And I see that in all of my colleagues in animation. Everybody is busy. Animation is right now thriving. All the studios are remote, and the same type of flexibility and adaptation happen also in that field. So what it means VR and using that both as a tool for young artists to develop their art. It means including special effect, including 3D tools for the students. When I started on Ants, we had an architect basically in the studio drafting plans on paper for all the sets that we were designing. Now, a young artist can actually build the set in CG and compress the production time greatly. And so there is a financial logic also to that evolution, the same way you see the use of Unreal and organic crystals in the Mandalorian, for example, different ways of shooting, the use of tracking cameras in a completely virtual world. So all of this we keep an eye on. All of this we are teaching. We're developing a partnership with Epic Games and Unreal to have them teach our students. So all of that has an impact, of course, and a great one. And we are listening and looking and adapting constantly.
Absolutely. And I'd be a little remiss not to redirect this to Andrea, considering PRG's recent work with Fortnite and Epic Games. So Andrew, if you can talk a little bit about that crossover as well.
Yeah, there's a huge boom right now in the virtual in-game concerts. And we just did a collaboration with on our XR stage with Epic Games and Fortnite. And they launched the Spotlight Concert Series, which we did inside of Fortnite's Party Royale. And, you know, my kids would know this, but I have no idea that this even existed. But it was very successful. We had performances from Anderson .Paak, Slushy, and Dominique Fike. And we used Unreal Engine, okay, which means that our clients are using the gaming technology to create that 3D world for artists to perform in. And so we brought, you know, we do a lot of music and we've done gaming before, but now we've married the two, and it seemed to be a really good combination. And to everyone's point, I think everyone is embracing gaming. And, you know, this is going to allow for us to have more fan engagement. In sports, we always talk about fan engagement. In gaming, you talk about fan engagement. I think this is going to be the norm coming out of this, is more fan engagement, more interaction with fans on how we do productions. So the developing a distribution, strong distribution platforms for gaming and fan engagement is really what we're focusing on now. We've been partnering with large distribution companies as well for transmission. Like Keith, I'm an engineer as well, so we realize that sometimes the quality from us doing the streaming from our studios is not where we'd like it. So we partnered and we were able to get those platforms going for distribution, and we've mastered it now. So we're doing really well. It was very successful. Epic is doing a lot of stuff going on, moving forward, and we hope to continue the relationship with them.
Absolutely. And I feel like we could continue these conversations for several more hours, but I rush through as many questions as we can in these next 15 minutes or so. The next question, and again, pivoting once again, really talking about more of the economic impact within the region of LA County. You know, LA has always been a very attractive place for the entertainment industry. With that said, it's not necessarily ever been the most inexpensive place to operate. So what is driving people to this region, and what can we do more to both retain and continue to attract talent and companies to locate themselves here and show that this region really is that promise for the industry? Mike and Ian, I'm looking to you two specifically. Mike, I'd like to start with you though, knowing Pluto and Pluto TV and headquarters and everything. What really has attracted you all here and really helped to ensure that growth?
Well, I mean, Pluto was born here in LA, and we're very proud of that. You know, and even though we're, as I said, to some extent distributed, the beating heart of the company remains right here in West Hollywood. And I would say that what we primarily would love to see is incentives and infrastructure to attract more talent into the region. This is the hub of where streaming began. Hulu, Netflix, you name it, this is where it all began. And this is obviously the heartbeat of the creative community as well. And so we're at that intersection of creativity and technology. And, you know, I think we find great talent here, but if we could be more competitive, and obviously we'd be beneficiaries of that. We can't drive that, but we'd love to see, you know, whatever can be done by those who can make these changes, ensure that we have the best engineers, the best data scientists, the best product people easily available to us within the local community. I think that would be wonderful, and to make us a little bit more competitive against sort of the usual suspect markets of, you know, Silicon Valley, Seattle, Austin, etc. I think we're getting there. We certainly are. But an acceleration of that would be wonderful. We'd love to support the local community more, and we're on a hiring spree. You know, unlike a lot of other companies, we're on a tear, and so we're very, very excited about the number of people that we're going to be hiring in 2021 and beyond. And so we'd love to have more local folks of all kinds join us, and so hopefully the education community can support us in that.
Absolutely. And Ian, your background and expertise really speaks to this.
Yeah, and I think to Mike's point, I think if you look at it, you know, the entertainment industry was really born here, and everything that's happened in the industry since then has effectively followed. I think, you know, that concentration of talent and experience and know-how has up until this point continued to attract new entrants into the industry to LA. So, you know, Mike mentioned Netflix. So, you know, they are, they've really relocated a lot of their people and built here. You know, Amazon Studios has a big presence here. So anyone who's in the creative business, even though they may be historically a technology company or another company looking to converge into the M&E industry, currently is putting people here. I think the other aspect is on the production side. You know, clearly we've been through ebbs and flows of, you know, runaway productions or, you know, cost considerations by large company, you know, by a large number of companies. And I think that is really driven by tax incentives and various credits. So I think that's something else. If you really focus on that side of the business, on the production aspect, that is going to continue to be critical, you know, post-pandemic. So obviously travel and getting in and out of places like Canada is a little bit more challenged. So, you know, local is to some extent quite advantageous currently, but once that kind of barrier goes away again, it then comes down to some pretty local economic policies that are going to attract and retain that activity.
Absolutely. And because I think this is such an important discussion point for today, I do want to open it up to Keith, Guillaume, Andrea, if you have any additional thoughts about either that attraction of business or even that retreat, if you've seen that here in the region.
It is a challenge just because it's opening up the economy globally, right? And we were already sort of competing with that on other industries. But to Ian's point, I mean, the talent is really here. And there's different pockets of technology around the country and entertainment, but really Hollywood is here. And so you see worldwide people looking to Hollywood for the global direction, even if things are being produced in other areas, but there's so many talented people that use this as the base. That's where people are using as the focus. So that constant drive and that sort of branding of our industry being in Hollywood does attract people here. And it's funny because we're doing a lot of economic development in Hollywood proper, but there's not a lot of studios in Hollywood. They're all around the city, but Los Angeles as a whole is really where our industry is thriving. So I think you're going to see more and more work here. As much as things are going remote, people are still looking for the talent to originate here.
Yeah, and I think the opportunity for having more talent, because the skill sets are changing. We're seeing where more engineers are getting engaged, more computer scientists are getting engaged. And so it would be great for the curriculum in these universities all around California to design things that are going to parallel what we need in the workforce. And so, you know, there was a time, you know, where there weren't enough computer scientists who were doing gaming and also new production. So that whole left brain, right brain thing that we all seem to have on this panel wasn't happening. And so I think now with gaming and doing virtual productions and extended reality and all these kinds of things, we're finding more technologists being more creative. And that falls in line greatly with, I know President Parham might like this, it falls greatly in with that STEAM education where we add the arts to the technology and the engineering. And so Los Angeles is a perfect bed for that. And we're trending and people are watching us. You know, as businesses open up, people are going to say, hey, what is LA doing? Have they handled COVID? Have they managed to continue doing productions in the midst of this pandemic? And we have, and we're gearing up. So I think this is a good opportunity for us to shine as in the LA area for sure.
Andrea, that's a perfect segue into our next discussion point. We've been getting a lot of questions about the skill sets that we're looking for within this industry, and knowing that you all represent a decently wide array of the industry itself. Guillaume, I want to kind of start with you on what are some of those skill sets. I know you spoke a little bit about it earlier, But what are those skill sets that we're starting to see change within the curriculum? And I know it's ever changing.
Yeah, it is. But we are right now implementing VR. So, and that comes from, the experience. So I didn't want this, but my son is a concept artist and he works in games. He works at Riot Games and my daughter is a producer there too. Randomly, they work at the same company, but and I see around them all the young artists and how the industry evolves in the gaming business. Art directors that are left and right brains, and because the constraints, technical constraints in the gaming field are paramount, which is not the case in animation, a lot less anyway. At the same time, there's a quest for, so talking about Unreal and talking about real-time rendering, this is also something we're experimenting with the short films, animated short films of our students. I know it's been a quest from big studios to have real-time rendering of a good enough quality to be able to put that on screen. Software like Unreal and what Epic Games is doing is bringing that closer. So for student films, this is something we can actually do, which extraordinarily cuts down on the time of production for those short films. So all that evolution, I said, earlier, doing classes in VR to try to get the engagement, but also a lot of artists are using now VR and actually a simple entry into the 3D world using Medium, using Gravity Sketch to be the base of a concept, of a painting, of a world that they can do. So all that we're doing and having our students use those tools to their maximum advantage because they need speed also. They need to be, producing images really, really fast. So we're looking at everything that can help them get that edge or produce their film faster. So in that, we kind of mirror the industry, but I'm super curious to listen to what the needs are, because we have here some distinguished panelists who have a lot of knowledge about what is coming, and so I'm all ears.
We just set it up so we need to go to one other person for that, and then I have two questions I'm going to try and squeeze in last minute. Okay. I'd love actually, Mike, again from a larger company standpoint, what skills would you all be looking for to be created within curriculums?
Well, that's an interesting question. I think that the talent exists already. I'm not sure that off the cuff I would say that the education already exists. I think that the access to the talent is maybe a little bit limited. So I wouldn't necessarily change the curriculums. I think that when we do hire and onboard successful candidates, they do display all the requisite skills within engineering, product, data science, analytics, etc., creative. And so I don't feel that the bar is low. I think that the bar is actually quite good within curriculums. I would just say we wish there were more of them. And because particularly we're hiring so quickly, that particular skill sets, I would say certain esoteric functions like machine learning or artificial intelligence within data science, or certain very specific skill sets, those are hard to come by. And so what we end up unfortunately doing sometimes is leaning on contractors that aren't necessarily, I say unfortunately for the Los Angeles community, that are outside of Los Angeles, because we've got to go where the talent is. And so it would be wonderful if that was a little bit more homegrown, and we could tap into that. But the folks that have joined us have been excellent. Absolutely,
and I think that segue, although you may not have meant this, segue a little bit into one of those final topics of representation. Part of access for a workforce is ensuring that the workforce has equal access, so they are fairly represented and equitably represented within these industries. And so I'd love to do a quick fire, apologies with time running down, a little bit of a quick fire to hear where do you feel representation currently stands across community groups within your part of the industry? But also, and perhaps more importantly, what is your company philosophy on trying to address this? And I'm only going to start with Mike because I remember that coming up in a previous conversation with you, Mike, on Pluto TV actually being at the forefront with some of the work that they're doing.
Well, thanks for the question. I would say it's two things. One is, I think where we can have the most impact as a company probably is within our product and service. We offer a wide array of views and opinions, challenging convention, a lot of thought-provoking, inspirational content. And I think what's wonderful about Pluto is its perceived neutrality. I think that no one's opinion is, obviously within certain bounds, is not allowed to be shared, and all views are welcome, but particularly with respect to social change and advocating for what we think are the right trends for the country. I think that our product and content have spoken for themselves. We've made substantial shifts within our content genres and the demographic groups that our content addresses over the last 18, 24 months. And I think we're very proud of that and continuing down that road. So please, check out some of the documentaries, some of the news and opinion channels, and some of the drama and other sort of fictional content that's really wonderful and really thought-provoking. On the talent side, I think that we have work to do. I think that we would be remiss if we were saying, gee, we're there and we're well accomplished. But I think that we've recognized that we are being led by a very thoughtful process by our parent company, ViacomCBS, who has implemented a lot of programs, particularly over the last 6 months or so, to address some of the inequities that exist within our own workforce. And so there is a huge amount of attention on redressing some of the imbalances. For our part, as Pluto, we have, even prior to this year, started making some inroads into even recruiting at some, quote unquote, non-traditional locations, making Pluto visible to some of the underrepresented communities from a top of funnel perspective. And so at least we're getting in front of more people, we're seeing more kinds of people, and the doors are wide open. So I feel pretty confident about the future, but obviously there's still work to do.
Absolutely. And last word on that, I'd like to pass it over to PRG and Andrea to speak to your company philosophy.
I think, definitely there's a lot of work to do. Definitely, I think where we need to start is letting people know that the opportunities are out there. I work very closely with the Sports Video Group, and out of all the BLM movements and the social injustice that's going on right now, I am on their executive committee, and we've launched a diversity initiative so that the Sports Video Group can go into these universities and colleges and explain to students who don't know what types of careers there actually are in the entertainment industry, because I think there's they see a lot of the in front of the camera stuff, but the behind the camera stuff that has kept us all having long-standing careers, they're not exposed to. And so the conversations, I can tell you, are more real than they have been in the past. We see companies like Netflix and everyone having great programming. So I think the more storytelling we do and the more focus that we have on decision makers being people who have different points of view. And so we're working on that as well, having decision makers who have that different point of view. And that means that they're different kinds of people, and that, people of color, women, everything. And so we're getting to the point now where it's got to be the norm in order for our businesses to survive. Young people want to see it, and they're going to beg for it right now. Seeing the protests in the streets, they're very strong and vocal about it as well. So we're there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrea. And thank you to all of our panelists, presenters today. I want to ask so many more questions. There's so many more thoughts we can provide, so many more issues we can discuss. Fortunately, we're already 2 minutes over. And so out of respect for everybody's time, I just want to thank you all for joining us. I know there are a lot of other questions that were submitted that we weren't able to get to. So for our attendees, don't worry, we will be forwarding these questions on to try and get them answered, and we'll communicate some of that to you as well. But thank you all again for joining us. I'm now going to pass it back on over to our CEO, Bill Allen. And before I do, I just want to do a quick highlight for the LAEDC's Digital Media and Entertainment group. One of our industry councils will also be hosting an event on Friday, December 4th. They'll be hosting another discussion on digital media entertainment. So please keep your eyes out for that as we send out our programming and whatnot. But with that, Bill, I'd like to pass this on over to you. And I did turn your video off, so I'm going to start your video once again so your face can be seen on the screen. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, Shane, for doing such a great job moderating. Let me just be very quick out of respect for everybody's time. Thank you, first of all, actually, to everyone in our audience for joining us today. I invite you all to give at least a digital round of applause to our great lineup of speakers today, Mike, Andrea, Keith, Guillaume, and Ian, for giving us all such a fascinating window into their exciting and evolving enterprises, and for sharing their perspectives on the forces and trends at play in entertainment and digital media today, and how we can keep the industry strong here. Thanks to our sponsor, Cal State Dominguez Hills, and its president, Dr. Thomas Parham, for making these events possible. We hope you all found our time together today enlightening and will join us in helping nurture the further growth of this exciting industry and in increasing the pathways into it for a more diverse representation of the talent in our communities. For our speakers, I will just share that the LADC is home to the Center for a Competitive Workforce, an impactful partnership with all 19 of our community colleges, and all 5 of our California State University presidents serve on the board of the LADC. So we know that they are absolutely committed to working with each of your companies and your industry to helping shape the curriculum, not only of general 4-year curriculum and 2-year curriculum, but short-term career training that can meet the needs that you have identified in this conversation today and will be encountering in the years ahead as you grow. We look forward to helping create that talent development pipeline for you to ensure you have the creative and engineering and management talent you need to continue the exciting growth of your enterprises. We hope you'll all visit the LADC.org to learn more about this Center for a Competitive Workforce, more about our future events in this Future Forum series, our upcoming 25th Annual Eddie Awards that will take place virtually on November 12 and will pay tribute to our oft-times unseen essential workers in LA County who have done so much to keep our economy going during these unprecedented times. And finally, in their honor, as you go back to your own workplaces or patronize the establishments of others in the days ahead, will you please each join the LADC in a campaign we are launching this month with Los Angeles County to focus these next few months on keeping more of our local enterprises and industry sectors open by doing everything each of us can do to keep everyone safer at work. Thank you all for being with us today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
You are watching DHTV from California State University, Dominguez Hills.